Welcome to another episode of the Cynical Writer. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that the best way to support this channel is to purchase my books, and I've left some links in the description section in case you're interested. Now, does dialogue always have to be realistic? Well, I don't think so. I mean, very often, realistic dialogue I find to be very boring. To me, I think that characters should speak in a way that is eloquent and pleasing to the ear, and that's why a lot of times, very often, my characters will sound, I guess you could say, more educated or sophisticated than perhaps they really are. And but to me, just realistic dialogue is very dull. Now, certainly, if a writer wants to write realistic dialogue, there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that a writer has to be bound to writing realistic dialogue. I mean, Shakespeare certainly didn't write realistically, and now I know a lot of people like to say, well, that was in the past and they spoke differently then. Now, it is true that in Shakespearean times they used terms like thee and thou and all of that, but Shakespeare wrote in verse. They did not speak poetically in Shakespearean times, and so. But again, it's all about conveying emotion through I guess you could say dialogue. And in order to do that, a character isn't always going to speak realistically. For example, in this passage that I wrote relatively recently, "That is where you are wrong, sir. Jeannie Anderson made the movies what they are today. It's a tragedy that I did not discover the true worth of her exquisite talent sooner. If I had, nothing, and I mean nothing, would have prevented me from spending every waking moment in the dark splendor of the theater, a place where dead memories are resurrected, where pipe dreams are made tangible, and where the humidity of fantasy triumphs over the frigidity of reality." Now, I really like that line of dialogue there. I think it plays very much with rhyme and things like that. But it's not realistic. People don't actually speak that way. But I do think that such dialogue is effective. And very often, I think that I often find that really interesting dialogue uses metaphor, that characters will speak metaphorically about their emotions. For example, a character might talk about how a fire, their fire is going out or something like that, which could be a metaphor for their dwindling career or something like that. Or that their evergreens are dying or something like that. I think that nature metaphors are often quite effective, and but again, I think that when characters speak metaphorically, that often works a lot better than when a character just blatantly states how they feel all the time. And dialogue historically has not been my strongest area, mainly because for the longest time I was trying to restrain myself by trying to write as realistically as possible, because I was afraid that people were going to accuse me of writing unrealistically. But to be perfectly honest now, I don't care really if people accuse me of that, because I have to write in a way that I think works best, and not necessarily what will please others. Again, at the end of the day, you need to write for yourself more than anything else, and not worry about what other people are going to think. But people just think that dialogue should be real, because that's what they've been told throughout most of their life. And again, it's not that I can't write realistic dialogue. It's just that I just don't find realistic dialogue to be very compelling. And even movies and books that have interesting storylines, a lot of times the dialogue, frankly, is very bland. I mean, it's very rare that you'll come across a book that has, or a movie that has interesting dialogue. I mean, in the past you did. I mean, in the past, there were a lot of literate scripts that were written by screenwriters, for example, like Joseph Mankiewicz and Billy Wilder and people like that. But more recently, such scripts are very lacking. And it's not that, about movies now, it's not that that film isn't a visual medium. It is, but you can do both. You can tell a story visually, which is what I try to do in my books as well with description. But you can also do it with dialogue. It depends on what the scene calls for. Now, I've written chapters, for example, where there's no dialogue whatsoever. In fact, in the story that I'm currently writing, there really isn't a lot of dialogue until the 5th chapter. But when dialogue is used, I think that it should be very eloquent, and in some cases, perhaps even poetic. So I guess that is my overall stance on dialogue. Well, I hope you enjoyed my speech for today. Like I said before, if you would like to support this channel, you can check out my books in the description section. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, goodbye.